All right, people, brace yourself. This one's going to be a long one. I apologize in advance, but you might want to pause for a minute, grab yourself a cup of coffee in order to follow along. This one's just plain bizarre. I mean, wow. I'll tell you about it in just a moment. Greetings and felicitations again, my fellow perceptive purple people. I wanted to take a few moments to talk with you about incredible criminal allegations and the difficulties in being able to trust a biased Just Us department. Recently, one of our newer viewers and I were talking, and she mentioned a newly filed criminal justice case that was just incredible, if accurately described, but also shows another problem of having a Justice Department stripped of professionals and stuffed chock full of lackeys. So, if you haven't heard about this, it's pretty bizarre. Well, we'll start with the press release from the U.S. DOJ website itself, but I want to point out the last line before the first one. That line being, "A grand jury indictment is not evidence of guilt. All defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law." Okay, that detail duly pointed out. Let's take a look at the DOJ's story. Dateline, Plano, Texas. 2 North Texas men have been charged in relation to a plot that included invading an island off Haiti, murdering the men of the island, and using the women and children as sex slaves, announced U.S. Attorney J.R. Combs. Gavin Rivers Weisenberg, 21, of Allen, Texas, and Tanner Christopher Thomas, 20, of Argyle, Texas, were named in a 2-count indictment returned by federal grand jury in the Eastern District of Texas, charging them with conspiracy for murder, maim, or kidnapping in a foreign country and production of child pornography. Information presented in court indicates that between August 2024 and July 2025, Weisenberg and Thomas are alleged to have conspired to recruit, lead an unlawful expeditionary force to the island of Gonave, which is part of the Republic of Haiti, for the purpose of carrying out their rape fantasies. Weisenberg and Thomas planned to purchase a sailboat, firearms, and ammunition, then recruit members of the District of Columbia area homeless population to serve as a mercenary force as they invaded Gonave Island and staged a coup d'etat. Weisenberg and Thomas intended to murder all of the men on the island so that they could then turn all the women and children into their sex slaves. Weisenberg and Thomas undertook numerous overt acts in furtherance of their invasion plan, including making operational and logistic plans, learning Haitian Creole language, recruiting others to join the invasion plan, and researching and enrolling in schools to acquire skills relevant to the invasion plan. Thomas even enlisted in the United States Air Force to acquire military skills relevant to the invasion plan. Weisenberg and Thomas are also charged with the production of child pornography in a related count in the indictment. If convicted of the federal conspiracy to commit murder in a foreign country, Weisenberg and Thomas face up to life in federal prison. If convicted of the federal production of child pornography charge, both face at least 15 years and up to 30 years in federal prison. The case is being investigated by the FBI, U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and the Salina Police Department, that's Salina, Texas. The case is being prosecuted by Assistant U.S. Attorney Ryan Locker. A grand jury indictment is not evidence of guilt. All defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. Yeah, current policy. Now, U.S. Attorney J.R. Combs, the person announcing the release, is your typical Trumpian lackey, so it's hard to trust the statement as given. That said, however, U.S. Attorney Ryan Locker, the prosecutor for this case, is an actual career prosecutor with the DOJ since 2012, when Obama was still president. So Prosecutor Locker may or may not be a Trumper, but he does have the actual legit creds for this case to be real. The AP reporting, though, gives a little bit more insight and raises significant questions that I'm sure any defense attorney can easily latch onto as they raise legitimate questions. Now, I'm not going to read the entire article for you, as doing so would be tedious and redundant, so I'll only note the pertinent passages of the article. Per the Associated Press. An indictment filed in a Texas federal court accuses the men of planning to recruit the homeless to join their coup in Haiti, buy a sailboat, and seize power on Gonave Island, which has about 87,000 residents. It covers roughly 290 square miles, 751 square kilometers, and is the largest island surrounding Hispaniola. According to the indictment, the two men worked on the plot from August 2024 through July 2025, and that preparations including researching weapons and ammunition and plans to buy military-type rifles. Prosecutors also allege that both men tried to learn the Haitian Creole language. Not tried. Thomas enlisted in the U.S. Air Force in January, according to the indictment, and told Weisenberg in a social media message that he had joined the military to further their planned attack. While in the Air Force, Thomas changed his assignment to Andrews Air Base in Maryland to help in the recruiting of homeless people in Washington, D.C., the indictment said. Weisenberg allegedly enrolled in a fire academy around Dallas to receive a training that would be useful in the attack, but failed out of school. He then allegedly traveled to Thailand and planned to learn to set sail, only to never end up enrolling in the lessons because of the cost. Attorneys for both men said Friday that they will enter not guilty pleas. They never tried to do any of this, said John Helms, who is Thomas's attorney. Helms said that while he has not yet seen the government's evidence, he thinks prosecutors, quote, are going to have a real hard time, unquote, trying to prove that Weisenberg and Thomas actually intended to carry out such a plot. David Finn, Weisenberg's attorney, said he encourages everyone to tap the brakes and reserve judgment. He said people have been telling him it is the craziest thing they have heard, and his response has been, yeah, it is. All right. Now, for a few observations and a reminder, and remember that the plot is a plot that included invading Gonave, a roughly 290 square mile island off Haiti, with a population of roughly 87,000 to 100,000 residents. They were a little off, murdering all of the men of the island and using the women and children as sex slaves. For this, one of them attempted to go to a fire academy. He went to Thailand, not exactly a cheap proposition, to learn to sail, then aborted taking the lessons because it was too expensive. No mention if this guy tried to get a better deal locally without having to pay for the overseas trip, by the way. I'm very curious as to how the prosecution is going to present evidence of just how many homeless people of D.C. being recruited for this invasion of a population of 87,000 to 100,000 people, too. Not to mention just how they intended to kill off between a third to half of that population. I mean, depending on if they plan to kill all the male children too, who can tell? Either way, whether it's made up for some sort of malevolent cause or it's accurately reported, it's crazy. Now, we'll find out soon enough whether this is one or the other, but it points out our much bigger problem. Our Department of Justice has become so corrupted, as evidenced by so many recent politically motivated prosecutions by incompetent MAGA hire buttlickers with no real cases, that they do charge somebody accurately. It's tough to believe them. It's the old case of crying wolf, people. If you have a DOJ that is churning out case after case after case of obvious political bullshit cases that rightfully get tossed out of court over and over again, then when you have an actual case, their credibility is already shot, making for an uphill evidentiary battle at the very least. Thanks to these shenanigans, every Tom, Dick, and Mary who now gets charged by the DOJ can somewhat reasonably claim various procedural defenses that would have never flown before MAGA took control over the DOJ. So what are your thoughts about all this? Do you find our position reasonable, or do you have more logical and or rational ideas on the subject? Do be prepared for vigorous yet polite debate. Let's hear them. As always, I'll see you in the comment section below. Till our next chance, remember to keep your balance and stay purple, people. We'll see you again real soon, and let's get America together.